On today's episode of the Lockdown NHL podcast, St. Louis is 2 sheets to the wind. We discuss the petty wars between St. Louis and Edmonton.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into yet another episode of the Lockdown NHL podcast. We are your daily NHL podcast, and we are your team every day. We thank you for making Lockdown NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Lockdown NHL, we discuss St. Louis throwing offer sheets around like they're going out of style, targeting a couple of young Edmonton Oilers players. We'll talk about what that means for the Oilers as they made a trade to try to free up some money, sending Cody Ceci to the Sharks. And we'll talk about a young goalie prospect in Nashville who wants out. Barry Trotz does not care, though. We'll talk about all that here on today's show. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Lockdown Wild, and one half of the dynamic duo for your Western Conference Tuesday, joined by JD Young of Lockdown Sharks, who is still reacting to my 2 sheets to the winds. I thought it fit this purpose because we don't see offer sheets all that often. We see them, once or twice, maybe every couple of seasons, but St. Louis decided to break out a couple of them. This tweet, courtesy of Frank Cervalli, that you sent me earlier today, JD. St. Louis Blues with offer sheets for Philip Broberg, 2 years, $4.58 million. And Dylan Holloway, 2 years, $2.29 million. The compensation due if the Oilers, so correct me if I'm wrong on this. So if the Oilers do not match, they receive the draft picks, correct?
That is correct. That is why right before the Blues made this, they traded with the Penguins to get back their original second round pick that they had traded to them earlier. They made a trade where they kind of flip-flopped some future picks and stuff, but the purpose was to get back that second round pick, because when you do these offer sheets, they have to be your original picks in the next upcoming draft. So even if you, for example, like if you're like the Utah, former Arizona kind of, who stockpile second round picks, like the nuclear holocaust is coming, they have to be your pick. That is what happened. Like you can't just pick and choose which ones that you give away. It has to be your pick. So the Blues, we were all awake, at least on the West Coast, waking up like, what are the Blues doing? And then bam, you come find out like 45 minutes later, this is what they're doing.
This is massively petty by the St. Louis Blues, because listen to this. So the compensation is a 3rd round pick for Holloway and a 2nd round pick for Broberg. This is my favorite part of all this. $1 more on the AAV for either player would have bumped up the compensation. So St. Louis prices righted this massively. Like, okay, we're going to get up to, but not exceed. We're going to just get right up to the ceiling.
Yep.
And Edmonton, obviously, this is the predicament that they find themselves in. Their roster is pretty loaded. Yep. Their roster is on the more veteran side.
Yep.
Their cap situation is a mess right now.
Yep.
Which means
it's not a mess. It's just, I would say it's a mess. It's just you have a lot of money tied up in high-end players, and that's what happens. Yes. So
and so what this means is, unless Edmonton, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, Edmonton's got to make some moves to try to fit one or both of these players on their books. And, in the case of Dylan Holloway, you're hoping he can become a pretty key piece for this team over the next few seasons. And, on the back ends too, you're talking about a 23-year-old defenseman in Philip Broberg and a 22-year-old forward in Dylan Holloway. Like, these aren't just throwaway players. Like, there is a chance if Edmonton does not find a way to get that money on the books that they're going to sorely miss these guys in a couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think for Edmonton, right, when you build with these high-end pieces, expensive pieces, Darnell Nurse making $1 bajillion, Connor McDavid making all the money he does, which he deserves every penny and more. You have to fill out the rest of your roster with this cheap cost, cheap cost controlled players as you try to make these cup runs, right? That's just kind of the way it works. Is you have to have these guys, especially when you spend so much. And I'm curious to see what Edmonton does here. And going back to the Price is Right, do the Blues, do they win both showcases here? Are they close enough, Seth, that you think that they get both showcases, or do you think they walk away with one or neither? What do you think? As we'll find out on Tuesday. We're going to find out by the time you probably listen to this.
I feel like at this point Edmonton's going to get one. It's just a matter of who, because we already know that they have moved Cody Ceci to free up some money. St. Louis put them in a predicament to where they're not going to be able to get both. And so for the Blues, at this point, it becomes kind of, which one are you hoping that Edmonton parts with? Like, look at the defense for the Oilers to start. You got Darnell Nurse, Matthias Ekholm, Philip Broberg, Evan Bouchard, Brett Kulak, Josh Brown, Ty Emberson, and Troy Stetcher. Like, that's your 8 defensemen on your roster right now. Broberg, I would imagine, is a pretty important piece of that.
Yeah.
But then you look on the forward side, and I'd almost argue with the uncertainty to guys like Evander Kane, for example, I would argue that Dylan Holloway is potentially a more important offensive piece.
You wonder if the Oilers tipped their hand a little bit when they traded for Podslinski from Vancouver there, where I feel like, you know what, if you want to take Holloway, cool, man. You do that. We found somebody who can kind of fill the role at half the cost here because they're paying him $1 million. Or you wonder if they tipped their hand a little bit here, and especially on the defense. I know they just added Ty Emberson as well. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but I'm really curious to see what the Oilers do. You're in a spot, you're trying to win a cup, you're trying to manage all these pieces and stuff, and I don't think they budgeted to pay these guys what they're getting paid right now.
Yeah, this was some calculated stuff by the Edmonton Oilers to force what it did was it forced Edmonton's hands. Like, Edmonton was going to get closer to the season, allow this all to kind of flesh out before they made any sort of decisions.
Yeah.
Now they have no choice. They now have to put all their plans into motion, and this is just going to be fascinating. It's like we're back in the expansion draft. Like, which player is going to get picked and taken, and which one stays?
So, for example, Evolving Hockey, who I really like the way they do their contract projections. They're really, really accurate. I know it's paid subscription, worth every penny. Evolving Hockey. They had Holloway's projected contract at a 2-year, $1.072 million for his contract. Phil Broberg, they had his projected contract at 1 year's under 900,000. Or under $1 million, basically. Sorry for his contract. So you're paying the Blues. They twisted the knife here on the Oilers, and I love it. We need more of this in hockey. It's great. It's great. It's kind of like the NBA, where you get the pettiness, you get the guys Yeah, it's a huge story, especially in the middle of August. So now we've seen the trickle down effect, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, of everything else that's kind of happened seems to come from what is going on right here. So, yeah, more offer sheets, except for my players. Don't offer sheet any of my players.
Yeah, I had a listener ask me if I thought it was likely that Jesper Wallstedt gets offer sheeted, and I'm like, I don't even want to entertain that possibility.
Crying, Seth just crying.
Yeah. I would just be like Tobias Funke in the shower.
Yeah,
just,
the bar of soap, just crying.
Excuse me. Excuse me. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but Petty Wars 2024. I'm with you. I want more of it. Let's talk about the first domino of this whole process, which was Cody Ceci being traded to the Sharks. We'll talk about that as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. We're getting close to the start of the hockey season, which means you're going to have your fantasy drafts coming up. And the guys over at Locked On Fantasy Hockey have done a great job of taking a look at the players that you should be targeting from your favorite teams. So make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey, available wherever you listen to your podcasts. So we talked about the offer sheets and St. Louis being 2 sheets to the wind. This has led to a ripple effect. The first domino that has fallen. Welcome to new San Jose Shark, Cody Ceci. JD, your thoughts?
I was a little bit surprised, to be honest. And Mike Greer has weaponized his cap space, right? So the trade is Cody Ceci in a 2025 third-round pick for defenseman Ty Emberson. We'll start with the Emberson part of it. Ty Emberson, who the Sharks claimed off waivers last season from the New York Rangers, had a really solid rookie season for the Sharks, but dealt with some injuries. I think he was a player who was one of the better defensive defensemen for the team. But that's, a flower among thorns there. As you watch, if anybody watched the Sharks more than 7 minutes, that team was bad. But Ty Emberson, I thought he played really, really well for the Sharks last year, and projects to be kind of like a bottom pairing defensive defenseman. Getting Cody Ceci will be interesting to see kind of where he fits in with the Sharks for them. Ceci, who's, he's definitely been poked at for some of his foibles on the internet, missing shots, et cetera. But I know he's well respected in the locker room. I know he's really good friends with Draisaitl. And I for the Sharks getting a third-round pick, it felt fair, to be honest. I know a lot of people were expecting the Sharks to get more out of a potential capped up, but Edmonton just doesn't have anything to trade. Like, they don't have their first-round pick. They don't have their second-round pick. They didn't have their fourth-round pick. Like, they just don't have stuff to trade. And for San Jose, maybe you flip Cody Ceci for something else. He's the type of player which I think other GMs will look for at the trade deadline, especially a guy in the last year of his deal. $3.25 million. It's doable to try to get it on under somebody's cap. But I think though for Emerson going back to filling out the roster with cheap talent, Emerson's a cost-controlled player for the next year. If he plays 50 NHL games, he'll continue to be an RFA. If he's under 50 games, he'll become a UFA and he can go sign elsewhere or go wherever he wants to sign. So I think for Edmonton, like you dump cap space, you got a player who probably is going to be useful for you. And I think the downgrade from CC to Emerson is not that much from Edmonton's point. And for the Sharks, you got a free 3rd round pick and you're probably going to flip CC for some other assets going sometime this season.
Yeah, I think that's the key point about this is that Mike Grier can now use this, like you said, to add assets at the trade deadline. That's what this is all about. And, it could be a situation, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, very Sharks centric here today.
Finally.
It could be a situation. It could be a situation where you are accumulating some picks back at the deadline that maybe you give up here before the season starts. And so I'm a huge favor of, especially for teams that are on the younger side, and shocker, San Jose Sharks fit that bill, just bringing in a veteran guy who can kind of, can impart a little bit on this team. And it may be that his time here is not going to be too long, but
yeah,
I mean, you look at, especially like, I know of the groups, defense is probably the most veteran of the Sharks roster.
How are they so old and so bad is my question.
I have no earthly idea. I can't help you.
Maybe that's the problem. They're all so old, but no. Yeah.
But it's like he brings in a different perspective from a different organization. He can bring a lot of what the Oilers did to get to the Stanley Cup final from last season.
What do you mean you guys don't have a Connor McDavid? What? That's his question.
So they're like,
so what? Stuff.
Yeah, what do we need to be able to get to the Stanley Cup final? Well, having Connor McDavid certainly helps.
It does help a little bit.
We can't contend with that. But no, it's just it is. I like the move. People on Twitter were saying, "Why are you helping out the Oilers?" You're getting a guy that then you can flip. That's the big thing it comes down to.
Yeah, I know people were ripping. Mike Grier is an idiot, has no idea what he's doing. I don't know. I think what Mike Grier's done in the past 2 years looks pretty good to me. So
I think he's doing all right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm curious to see with CC, and we're gonna talk about this here a little bit more. How long CC's in Teal or other potential Sharks players? But yeah, I think though for the Sharks, like it's fine. You're kind of you're still in your asset gathering mode. It's another piece because you really have too much left to trade at the trade deadline after burning this thing down. And I think it's just, again, you're kind of taking a flyer, and maybe Cody Ceci, when you take him apart from Darnell Nurse, because that pairing was an absolute disaster, especially in the playoffs. Maybe there's a little bit something there. Maybe he has a little bit of rebound, or maybe it's a dead cat bounce or something like that. But yeah, I think he's going to play a lot for the Sharks. He's going to play on the penalty kill. He's probably going to rack up some numbers because it's Jake Wallman and Mario Ferraro and the corpse of Mark-Edward Vlasic. And I think he's just going to kind of hold down the fort until some of the young guys are ready to make their jump.
Now, I teased potentially getting some assets back that you traded before the start of the season, and I did that for a specific reason, because a certain young goalie has decided enough is enough. But guess what? Barry Trotz does not care. And so we'll talk about the Yaroslav Askarov situation, as he is officially asked for a trade. Greener pastures.
Askaroved for a trade.
Yeah,
he right there.
He Askaroved and found out that Barry Trotz is like, no, we're not doing it. So let's talk about the market for a very intriguing young goalie prospect in Yaroslav Askarov. That is coming up here on today's episode of Lockdown NHL. We are your team every day.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and our matching engine helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agreed Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So, join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Final segment of today's episode of the Lockdown NHL podcast. We are your team every day, and we thank you for making Lockdown NHL your first listen each and every day. All right, let's talk Yaroslav Askarov, because he sees the writing on the wall, which is that UC Saros is going to be the goalie for the Nashville Predators until 2033.
It's a long time.
Assuming he stays through the entirety of his contract. But Askarov, as of right now, he is in the final year of his ELC. There's another goalie on the roster for the Nashville Predators right now, that being Mr. Scott Wedgwood, who is signed for 2 seasons.
Yep.
There's not a lot in the way of starts available at this point. And so Askarov has said, I can't do it here. I would like to go elsewhere. And Barry Trotz pulled the rock, grabbed the microphone from him as he was talking and said, "It doesn't matter what you think." He said, "We fully expect the player to be here for training camp and to compete for a spot on the roster." Which, what are you supposed to say?
Yeah.
In this
you
situation?
can't say like, yeah, you can't say, because his value is already like, as soon as he asks for a trade, his value just goes from up here to down here. It's the moment he asks for a trade. And yeah, what's Barry Trotz supposed to say other than we expect him to be here? But Askarov kind of seems like the guy who might be willing to make a sneak about this. I've talked to him. Super nice dude, super out there type of guy. And I don't know why. I got a gut feeling that he feels like a guy who could, again, we don't see like holdouts in the NHL. It's a very NFL type of thing, right? The holdouts and the hold-ins and all that stuff. Could Askarov be the first guy to just be like, I'm not showing up. Trade me. Just trade me until it happens. And again, as we ask for the petty wars and the pettiness of the NHL, it would be fun.
So he's been with the Milwaukee Admirals for the last 2 seasons. He's gotten 3 total games at the NHL level over the last 2 years. 48 starts in 2022, 2023 in Milwaukee. 44 starts this past season.
Good numbers.
And his combined winning percentage, or his combined wins and losses, 56, 29, and 6.
Milwaukee's also like an excellent AHL team. Like they went to the Western Conference final, whatever. I think this year, like it's a great AHL team.
He had a 2.39 goals against average this past season with a 911 save percentage. And 6 shutouts, by the way.
It's pretty good.
So this is kind of the point that we get to with a lot of young players is there anything that he really needs to learn at the AHL level, or are you kind of stunting a player's growth by just saying, well, earn it? It's hard to know because I look at it this way. Like Barry Trotz says, go win a job. They're both taken. Like,
yeah, you paid. I mean, Wedgwood's not making like some, was he 2 years at 1.5 million? It's not some like
yeah,
astronomical, but like you said it with your actions, right? You went out and signed Scott Wedgwood this offseason. You could have not signed Scott Wedgwood. You could have signed some other kind of AHL, NHL tweener type of goalie, like a veteran AHL guy or whatever. But like, no. And also for Askarov, right? You're the 11th pick in the draft. Do you really see yourself being kind of the backup for the next 8 years?
Well, that's the thing. Unless something were to happen to UC Saros and or he were to get traded, that is your ceiling, is being a backup.
You're playing 25, 30 games a year behind UC Saros? This
is the one place. Now, if it were a situation like if he were, for instance, a prospect in the Minnesota Wild farm system, and you've got Philip Gustafson, who, was inconsistent last year. He's a young goalie, but he's not UC Saros.
Yeah.
So if it were a situation like that, I'd be like, you know what? You could go out there and perform better and be the 1A to Gustafson's 1B. And then when Gustafson leaves, you're the number one guy. So if that were the situation, I would tell Askarov to say, that's too bad. Like, just wait your turn. But this is clearly a different situation to where I don't fault him at all for wanting to try to find a spot, which brings in the San Jose Sharks once again as a potential
2 segments.
So the teams that are potentially interested are the Sharks, Carolina, Chicago, and were there any others?
Those were the 3. I know the Carolina and San Jose were kind of reported as like teams to keep an eye on, for example. And let's start with Carolina because I think we'll get to the Sharks here. But Carolina, right, is a team that is in a win now cup mode. They've been very kind of cheap. I don't want to say cheap, but they've been very cost controlled, I would say is probably the better term for their goal situation, right? They've kind of run through goalies here, and they have one of the best defenses in the league. So you would assume if Askarov kind of got into that situation where he would be able to at least be the 1B right now and play a healthy amount of games, and he's got a really good team in front of him and would be able to help a team like Carolina. And Carolina does have a lot of amazing prospects. So you could totally see it from that point of view. And I think I would just kind of lump the Sharks and the Blackhawks together because they're both in the same situation as rebuilding teams who are still looking to add pieces. And I don't think have the answers at goal. And for the Sharks, right, you have one of, if not the best prospect pools out there. And if you added Askarov, you vault that's the number one prospect pool in the league, hands down. I don't care. You can't touch what the Sharks potentially have if they were able to pull off Askarov. And I'm curious to see what if it does get to a trade point, and I do think it does get to a point because I like I said, I think Askarov could be the guy who just kind of makes a big stink about it, and just it's just like, okay, we're just done with you at this point.
Yeah.
I keep seeing picks and prospects. I don't see it. If you're the Nashville Predators, you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, right? Remind me, what did they do this offseason?
A lot, and they pushed all their chips in the middle of the table and said, we're going for it here. So you're right on. Like if this were some other team, middle of the road team that was trying to add a goalie prospect, then you maybe go picks or prospects to get them back in return. But the other thing too for San Jose that I'll point out that I'm sure I don't need to remind you about, they're rolling into the season with Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood, who are both going to be unrestricted free agents after the season is done. And you hit it right on the head. That's the one spot in the lineup that has not really been shored up yet. And if you get Askarov into the mix, and he hits, that changes. That is the kind of like prospect injection that can flip a franchise's fortunes around in a very quick fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and I think if you look at like what Nashville needs, right? And Nashville's kind of a little top heavy right now. They don't have a lot of money. They need solid depth players that don't cost a lot. You know, the Sharks have a ton of
a lot of those types of guys.
Solid depth players that don't cost a lot. And I would be curious to see if, the Nashville's got 6 defensemen under contract right now. Hey, we have Mario Ferraro and Cody Ceci. They're kind of the same player. One's left-handed, one's right-handed. Which one? They cost the same amount, $3.25 million. Which one do you want? Do you want yourself a nice Nico Sturm who can play on the penalty kill? You saw that he played with what he did for Colorado in their cup run a couple seasons ago. $2 million, like whatever you want. If you want some NHL, like quality NHL depth players to come in and help round out your roster that you're trying to win right now, San Jose's got a ton of those type of guys, and I think this is more of a hockey trade than maybe people realize. And maybe there's some picks flipped here and there and stuff, but Nashville doesn't need the picks. They got 2 first-round picks this year, 2 second-round picks. They have multiple assets to go into the trade deadline to do whatever they want. They just don't have a lot of cap space, and they just need to round out their roster. And I think if they do want to trade Askarov, I think that is probably what the package looks like. It's probably, if you're a Nashville fan, you're probably going to feel underwhelmed by the return, but these guys are going to help you win games now. Askarov isn't going to help you win games right now.
Yeah, Mario Ferraro maybe is more. I would push him more towards the front of the line if you're trading a defenseman, because he's got that second year. Yeah. So Nashville is at least getting,
cost
something. For a couple of seasons. So we'll see, but don't underestimate Jan Ruda too. He's out there. He's available.
Freely available, like wherever you get podcasts.
So we'll see what happens. Crazy news day throughout the NHL, and nobody has you better covered than Locked On NHL. So to hear more about your favorite NHL teams and headlines going on throughout the NHL, make sure to subscribe.
They'll be talking about a certain Patrick Laine over on the Eastern Conference trade. Yes.
Yeah. That's I was conflicted. On one hand, I would have loved to have seen the Wild add some offense, but there are clearly other factors in play. And so,
dollar bills, y'all.
At the end of the day, I was like, okay.
Look up.
But yes, they will have you covered. Locked On NHL will have you covered with Eastern Conference Wednesday coming up tomorrow. So make sure to stay tuned there. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Locked On NHL, keeping things rolling with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.